Hola, mi gente. Buenos días y bienvenidos. I am in Buenos Aires. All right. It's good to hear you. I'd love to shout out to the whole AV worship music team, volunteers, and staff for making this incredible miracle of connecting across continents possible. Our Universalist heritage proposes that each person is made of divine goodness, and science offers that we are stardust. Whatever your beliefs, know that you are a gift inherently worthy of love. You're a gift, and I am so glad that we are connected. Love is the spirit of all souls. It is also the center value of our faith. In this moment of our shared journey, may you feel witnessed and honored wherever you are on that journey. I invite you now to please rise and embody your spirit and greet your neighbor, especially new or returning people, with your name and your pronouns. We will return to the prelude by Rex Martin.
As the rain sifts through the trees, it threatens nature's ancient harmony. Poison rain from an ailing sky beneath the ground. Roots will die, and that is why I sing this song for the earth. The tainted river struggles to the open sea. Defiled is the mountain's majesty. All of life is a chain. When one is hurt, we all feel the pain. What do we gain? For what it's worth, I'm offering this song to the earth. The sea is where all life began. The ocean is our origin. If she dies, nothing survives. No, no one will be left behind. And who will look with awe upon the monuments of humankind? But the trees still strive to grow. watching generations come and go. Green and tall, the island is theirs, feeding the soil, cleaning the air, living their song, a song for the earth. It's a song for the earth. It's a song for the earth.
Rex. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to all who are with us in the moment and to those who are going to be joining us later on by YouTube. I will be serving as worship associate today. I'm John Murphy, pronouns he, him, and I'm serving together with Nancy Olson, acting director of faith formation, and our senior minister, Reverend Katie, whose pronouns are she, Aya. Nancy's pronouns are she, her. And Cabe Perrieri, music director, his pronouns are he, him. So we're your worship's team on the chancel today. And as you saw, Reverend Katie is joining us from Buenos Aires. People of all ages are joyfully welcomed in service, as you know. Nursery care is available. I don't think we need it this morning, but it is available if anybody wants to go to the nursery. I invite everyone to please complete a connection card. This card's a great way to let us know if you'd like support, need assistance, have new contact information, or have an interest, comment, or question. So if you want to put something on a connection card, put it in the collection basket as it's passed. So there are several, and I mean several, opportunities coming up for learning and growth here at All Souls. And I don't have time to go through them all, but there's a bunch, at least a handful. And these activities and group activities they're open to all, and there's no fee for attending. And all we ask you is to register so we know how many to expect. And that you can do that through links provided in our weekly publication, In the Know. Now, if there's any of you who are not getting In the Know, you should sign up for that and just put your email address, your name, and note on a connection card that you'd like to be included in the circulation list. And we'll see that you get added. I'd like to make a note, and you'll notice very shortly, that today's service will be doing parts in English and parts in Spanish, and Reverend Katie will be doing the Spanish parts. As we begin our time together, we acknowledge the land itself and those who have sustained it throughout the generations. We are on the unceded land of the Lenape, Miami, Kaskaskia, Shawnee, and Kickapoo people who were pushed for their land and whose children were stolen. As we strive to be a community of justice, may we find ways to make reparations. Reverend Katie and I will now do a reading by the Reverend Dr. Tanya Marquez. Reverend Katie will do it in Spanish, and I will do it in English. Reverend Katie.
Reverend Katie, you are muted.
I'm not on mute. Are we there? Okay. Technological snafu. It's not really a Zoom meeting unless someone is somehow muted or there's a technological issue. So thank you for hanging in. Llamado del pasado. De las alturas de los Andes, la selva y el desierto, de las profundidades del mar, de un tiempo que fue, de un tiempo que va más allá de nuestra memoria, somos llamados. Nuestras historias llegan hasta los primeros pueblos, los primeros pasos del choque de mundos. A comienzos abruptos, todos somos nómadas de esta tierra. Hemos heredado el trabajo injusto de nuestros antepasados, de los que vinieron antes que nosotros. Somos llamados a continuar la labor. Llamado de presente. Las voces de nuestra gente nos llaman ahora. El mundo alberga sus alegrías y sus tristezas. Escuchamos el clamor de nuestra gente exigiendo justicia. En ese llamado reconocemos las voces de quienes deambulan en el desierto, los cruzadores de fronteras, los navegantes, los buscadores de justicia, los soñadores y los esperanzados. Dejemos nuestra historia con la historia de nuestros antepasados, aquí y ahora. Estamos en el centro de responder a este llamado que llega de todos los rincones de esta tierra, del sur, del norte, del este y oeste. Estamos llamados a sostener la labor. Llamado del futuro. Las voces de los que serán nos llaman. Un recordatorio de quienes debemos ser. En el tejer de nuestra historia a la red de la vida debemos recordar, no recortar los hilos, pues habrá otros que vienen después. Otros con corazones generosos y fuertes voluntades, con determinación creativa. Los que vivirán en la casa de mañana. Tu visión no nos escapa. Aún así somos llamados a preparar el camino, a dejar posibilidad como legado y cimientos sobre los cuales construirán un mejor mañana. Somos llamados a crear oportunidades.
A call from the past. From the heights of the Andes, the jungle, and the desert, from the depths of the sea, from a time that was, from a time that stretches beyond our memory, we are called. Our histories stretch back to the first peoples, the first steps, the collision of worlds, to abrupt beginnings, all wanderers of this land. We have inherited the unfinished labor of our ancestors, those that came before us. We are called to continue the work. A call from the present. The voices of our people call us now. The world harbors their joys and their sorrows. We hear the cries of our people demanding justice. In that call, we recognize the voices of those who wander in the desert, the border crossers, the navigators, the justice seekers, the dreamers, and the hopeful. We weave our story to the story of our ancestors right here, right now. We are in the midst of responding the call that comes from all corners of this land, from the south, north, the east, and the west. We are called to sustain the work. A call from the future. The voices of those who will be, a reminder of who we need to be. In the weaving our story to the web of life, we must remember that we must not cut the strings. For there are others coming after us, others with tender hearts and strong wills, with creative determination, those who will live in the house of tomorrow. Their vision escapes us, yet we are called to prepare the road to leave behind possibility and foundations upon which they will build a better tomorrow. We are called to create new opportunities. Reverend Katie is next, isn't she?
Thank you, John. Jane Murphy, thank you, Jane, is going to light our chalice today. And this ritual of lighting our chalice, it reminds us to continually renew our promise, to live into our covenant, to put love into action, and to live out this community of love and justice that we aim to be. And so if you would please rise in body or spirit, as we share the words that are printed in your order of celebration, as we do each week, we will speak them in both Spanish and English. And if you are with us online, would you please let us know in the chat where you are lighting your chalice from? We will speak in Spanish first. El amor es el espíritu de
Espíritu de
y el servicio es su ley. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor y ayudarnos unos a otros. Este es nuestro pacto. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant. Thank you. You may be seated.
We began to dream about this service when Gabe found a creation story online, a creation story specifically from Brazil. And today we bring to you stories of creation from across South America. We share these stories with respect and reverence. Some of these stories belong to some of our ancestors and some do not. Who are the creators in these stories? As the world is being created, is it being created for people or with them? Who are the heroes and who are the enemies in these stories? And how do these stories shape modern day cultures and political systems? I invite you to rest with these questions. In October of 2018, Hip Latina, an online zine for and by Latinas, created an article about the indigenous tribes in Argentina. According to the article, 35 recognized tribes lived in Argentina. The Guarani of what is now known as Brazil, the Inca people who occupied much of South America, and the Mapuche of both Chile and Argentina. I want to highlight a few of these tribes and hope you check out the article to learn more. I'll begin quoting now. There are between 100,000 and 500,000 Mapuche in Argentina. In their language, the word Mapuche translates to people of the land. The Diaguita Calchaquí of northern Argentina are said to number around 13,773. They were among the most advanced pre-Columbian cultures in Argentina. The Taipite, a Tupi-Guarani language in Argentina, number only 400 to 700 people, and also live in Bolivia and Paraguay. The Huichi in Argentina live primarily between Bermejo and Pilcomayo rivers. They were victims of the government-caused genocides that occurred between 1850 and 1890, which killed thousands of Huichi, Mapuche, Pilaga, and Guarani people. This is an effect of colonization. So I wonder how many creation stories have been lost, how many have survived, and how origin stories influence the way we live, move, and have our being. Today, we're bringing some of these stories to our space. Please be present to reflect with them. I invite you to engage with an open heart and consider what real reparations to tribes might be. Thank you.
It might be a surprise for some of us, but I also speak. I don't only sing. um, it is interesting. I was just scrolling on Instagram when I found this story, and I started the research about that. So here it goes. The Guarani people, indigenous from South America, particularly in regions of Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay, and Uruguay, have a rich and diverse myths, and they vary among the different communities and regions. It is one of the biggest indigenous people in the whole Latin America. So you can see they are very spread out. One prevalent version of the Guarani creation myth revolves around the figures of Tupã and Jaci. In this creation myth, Yamandu, who was a shapeless energy, decided to look into themselves and transform themselves in multiple birds to explore their insides. And when they did that, they found out how big they actually were. After discovering the gigantic space within themselves, they decided to sing, which is the interesting part for me. They decided to sing, and singing, he created the planets, the gods, and the stars to fill the space within themselves. After the universe had already been created by Yamandu, Tupã, who was the god of the lighting, and Jaci, the goddess of the moon, came to earth and created everything with their own hands. After creating all the landscapes, they created the insects and the animals, blowing life into their bodies. Tupã and Jaci frequented the earth and taught the first humans how to hunt, how to cultivate the land, how to take care of themselves and the other animals, and to honor the spirits of nature. One significant aspect of this Guarani creation myth is the belief in the interconnectedness of all living beings and the importance of maintaining harmony within nature. Humans are just part of the nature as all the other animals, as all the other beings are. And every individual action has a direct impact in the balance of the universe. Of course, there are other versions of this same myth, but this caught my attention because it emphasizes the implosion of the very beginning of the creation, looking into yourself and seeing how big you are and creating something so big inside yourself. And also the fact that those two gods came to earth and created everything with their own hands, not just a spell, a magic thing. So the effort of the work, of the attention of creating is special to me. Now a little change in the order of celebration. We switched the position of the two pieces that I'm singing to Brazilian pieces. This one that I'm singing now is called Mokosese Maka, which is a chant from another tribe, from the Parisis, which is a smaller tribe. And it is very interesting because, first of all, it is very challenging to sing, even though it is very short. We are used to a certain quality of music, a certain characteristic of music that is not this. So adjusting my skills particularly and our listening to this type of music can be a little challenging. And to be honest, we don't even know if the way that it was written is exactly the way that they would sing, because the tones that will be sung are so close together that for me it seems that they were just sliding down and sliding up, and then the composer, the arranger, needed to write the music in some way. So it might even be a whitewashed way of writing the music. Namakose se maka, namakose se maka, namakose se maka, namakose se maka, uiromokose se maka, uiromokose se maka, uiromokose se maka, mamakose se maka, se maka, maka,
So now we'll talk about the creation story and the origin stories of the Incas. Although the Incas had many deities, the god Viracocha was supreme and the god of everything. He created the sun, the moon, the stars to light up the world that was immersed in darkness. Viracocha also created time by ordering the sun to move itself in the sky. And then he created humanity by blowing on the stones. But he didn't like what he had created, as they turned out to be strong, violent giants with no intelligence. The giants did not recognize Viracocha as their creator and rebelled against him. So Viracocha sent a devastating deluge that destroyed them. And from the remaining small stones, he created a better humanity. Later, Viracocha's omnipotence was diminished, and Inti, the sun god, was elevated to equal status. And that's because Inti was credited with helping the Incas defeat their enemies and turning the Inca income in Cusco into a great and prosperous empire. So prevailing mythology concerning the origin of the Inca people has several facets that are going to sound familiar. According to the legend, 4 brothers and sister wives were called up from the waters of Lake Titicaca by the sun god Inti to create and rule over a more civilized society amongst the uncivilized and ignorant tribes currently living in the area in Peru between Lake Titicaca and Cusco. The leader was Manco Capac, who carried a staff to test the soil for suitability for growing corn. Although the people on the land resented being subjugated, armies led by the brothers were able to defeat them and eventually made their way to Cusco, the Cusco Valley actually, where the staff that Manco Capac carried sank easily into the ground. And this indicated that the soil would be ideal for growing corn, which was a staple food source. From this beginning, the Inca Empire, with its epicenter at Cusco, eventually grew to include areas in present-day Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. So it's interesting to me that the mythology, this particular version, included a couple of noteworthy claims that have also been made elsewhere. First, that the conquerors were endowed with superior intelligence and knowledge. And second, that the conquerors were commissioned by their God to subjugate and indoctrinate indigenous people already living on the land. Apparently, such beliefs can prove successful, at least in the short run.
Let's stand up and sing together the hymn Alabanza. This hymn is, we will sing verse 1 and 2 in Spanish, then 1 and 2 and in English. It's on your teal hymn, number 1065. Before we sing in English, I know this is not very well known, but now we have the opportunity to sing the melody that you just heard in English. Does anybody know what is a coqui? It's a frog. Yes. Yes, it is a frog-like creature. It's not quite of a regular frog. And it sings coqui, coqui, coqui. So it was interesting to be in Puerto Rico this year in the conference and just been walking on the streets and hear this coqui, coqui out of nowhere. So that's interesting because this is not what we can see here in Indianapolis. Verse number 1 in English. As the rain is falling, the forest is reborn. All the fields are verdant, creation is renewed. Look at red lily, el duende
Oh, let's take a few moments and just note what might be bringing joy or sorrow to your own hearts, or to what you are experiencing or feeling in this moment. I have an update from the Bainies. Some of you may know that Nancy Bainey contracted COVID a week ago when she was traveling to a family wedding. She's doing better and will be back with us soon, I assume. And Gary is still in the hospital, but is improving and hopefully will be going to rehab in this coming week. So we keep those cards going to them as they go through these weeks. We're also remembering Sonia Eisenhardt and her family, who recently lost her sister-in-law, Vicki Foley. Sonia's a relatively new member if you haven't met her yet, but her address is in our round, so I'm sure they would also appreciate a note, a card. We also hold in our hearts all those grieving the loss of local Black activist Ron Gee, whose life was recently taken by gun violence in our streets. Ron gave much hope to many, and may we honor his memory. And I actually just heard on a program that hope needs a blueprint. Hope needs a blueprint. And Ron was someone who brought a blueprint to hope in our community. So I will light another chalice here for all of those sorrows, all of those joys that we are holding in our hearts but are unspoken now. May we just take a moment, take a breath, and as we breathe in, breathe out. We breathe in those sense of those joys and sorrows, and we breathe out a love that we send out into the world. Thank you.
We're singing in English and then in Spanish. Spirit alive, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stories of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit alive, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí. Al corazón, cántale tu compasión. Sopla el arvolar, sube a la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí.
That was beautiful. Thank you. So I am in the city of Buenos Aires, on the land of many tribes, specifically the Mapuche and Guarani people. These are the people who've lived on this land, shared it, and worked and sustained it for generations. Their origin stories are connected to the land, the stars, and the holy. I think a bit of John's reflection and some of what Gabe has shared today, and I wonder how much of these original stories have been colonized by the colonizers and how much of them remain the same. I'm also present to the knowing that this is the ground of my ancestors. And while I've been here, I've been reflecting so much on how the culture in Argentina has shaped me in ways that were obvious and in ways that I didn't even know about until I came here. Will you wonder with me how the origin stories that each of us has grown up with have influenced the way in which we think of the world, live, move, and have our being? The United States, socially and politically writ large, is highly influenced by Christian narratives. In the Bible, there are 4 stories of Genesis, and a favorite translation by many US politicians in one of the particular Genesis stories says that we have dominion over the earth, whereas other translations will say that we have stewardship over the earth. To say that we have dominion, I believe, is a bad theology. In Robin Will Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass, we get a sense for the indigenous notion, her tribe's notion of communalism and care for the land. And we see this in many faiths across the globe, and the seeds of this are also in Christianity. There is a tension here. I am in a culture in this moment, right here in Buenos Aires, that has retained some of the communal nature, where origin stories of indigenous people often do dance side by side with Christian theology in the Católica churches. When I go to sleep at night, I hear singing on the streets of San Telmo just beneath my window. Increíble. When I go to sleep in Indianapolis, I often fall asleep to the sound of gunshots. I see leaders in the US who believe that the world is there for the taking, and others asleep at the wheel, while democracy is being taken for granted as if it's a divine right. Here in Buenos Aires, there is a candidness that there have been times in the history of this beloved country where militarism and fascism have grabbed hold, and the people have continued to band together and fight together for freedom and liberation. There is an understanding here that democracy is not free. Democracy must have continued engagement by the people. Some years ago, the think tank, the Heritage Foundation, introduced a 900-page plan called Project 2025. This will reverse progress on the environment, lead to accelerated climate change. Project 2025 attacks BIPOC and LGBTQ rights, seeks to dismantle DEI, calls for internment camps for immigrants, and mass deportations. It promises to remove non-radical right loyalists from all levels of government, replacing them with their own people. It will devalue science, and it will further remove the rights to bodily autonomy while systemically dismantling US democracy. This plan is supported by supposed Christians, yet it is rooted not in Christianity, but in white Christian nationalism, and is perhaps spawned by an origin story that calls for dominion over the world and not stewardship. The fact that these leaders also cherry pick portions of the Bible to quote out of context and ignore key aspects of the Bible, like the Beatitudes, is another sermon series altogether. There's been rhetoric lately seeking to minimize Project 2025 and its potential devastating effects on our democracy. But I say not here, not at All Souls, as I stand on the ground of my people where there is a knowingness that democracy requires our consistent engagement. I wish to remind you, people of reason, the words of French literary figure Charles Baudelaire, who once wrote, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist." Evil does exist in these pages, not a supernatural evil, but a very human one. Well, this publication is not Mein Kampf. I've seen that comparison lately, and it is not respectful to our Jewish kin and all who are still suffering generations later from the hell on earth that Hitler created. We can still learn from the ways in which Hitler's works were minimized and dismissed. Are we a people who have learned from history? In June of 2018, former UUA President Susan Frederick Gray rallied our General Assembly, called for us to increase our commitment to dismantling systems of oppression, and passionately decried that this is no time for casual faith. Democracy requires active participation. And these words ring through and true today, for this is no time for a casual faith. We condemn the shooting attempt on the Republican candidate by Thomas Matthew Crooks. The UUA stated this in a recent letter. Last Saturday's act of violence, it said, weakens our democracy. This is true. We need more than a one-party system for democracy to work. And we need leaders who are committed to democracy, who will push their fellow elected officials to do the right thing for the people, not for themselves and not for special interests. We have learned that Thomas Crooks was a registered Republican who was described as, quote, conservative and always arguing for conservative values, quote, by high school friend Max R. Smith in a BBC article. It is true that we do not know what his motivation was, and we may never know. What we do know is that lots of misinformation is being released and will be released. Our faith calls us to bring reason and to act from love. Can we agree to resist going down rabbit holes led by clickbait and algorithms? This is no time for a casual faith. Nancy Olson and I had a conversation earlier this week, and she and I will begin to lead conversations via Zoom so that we may hold space during this difficult election time. We'll begin in August. We're inviting all the congregations in our area, so all four will be together, and we'll begin together. We'll break into groups of liberal to moderate and moderate to conservative, and then we'll come back to the end, back together at the end of these conversations, because we need each other to survive. This is no time for casual faith. In her Substack blog, How We Get Through This, author Ijoma Ulo invites us to consider this. This isn't the first time our government has descended into open fascism. We actually have the power to effectively fight this. We actually have the power to effectively fight this. She goes on to provide suggestions for going forward, including strengthening community relationships, integrating movement, meditation, therapy, and more into life. Beloveds, we may have different stories about how we see the world, how it's shaped, and for whom it was shaped. If your story is leading to destruction, I invite you to let love in and find a way to rewrite one together in community that leads to justice and equity for all. If your story of creation is a communal one, share it loudly and proudly so that we may weave together and fill the world with this change, because this is no time for a casual faith. Sikh author and activist Valerie Kaur said this in a statement on her Instagram on July 17th. What if this is the moment we choose to double down on our commitments to each other and to a vision of America where routine bloodletting and policies of oppression are relics of history, where we replace a culture of violence with a culture of belonging and dignity and love, not just every election, but every day. Love is the spirit of all souls, and love is the center of our Unitarian Universalist values. Do you want to be a beacon of love? Yes. Do you want to show people who are terrified that we are a safe place, that when they fear violence coming to their door, that they can come into our doors, they can come to us online, that they are safe to enter our building and use the bathroom, that we care about keeping their family together? Do you want to keep the person next to you in the sanctuary or connected to you online in the US with their family? Do you want to feel love and safety? If the answer is yes, then know that this is no time for a casual faith. This is the time to lead into our values and lead from love fiercely. Now is the time to fly our pride flags, to put out our Black Lives Matter flag all the time, to show up for the Black Church Coalition, to fight harder and louder for reproductive justice, a pathway to citizenship, publicly support DACA, advocate for disability rights and reparations for BIPOC kin harmed by systems of oppression as we fight to change them. Perhaps this is the time we gratefully receive volunteer support to build a justice center, as one of our small groups mentioned during the visioning session, where some of us make sandwiches and others make signs. Some of us knock on doors or write letters and postcards. Some protest on the streets and others teach skills, and still others offer meditation classes and spiritual grounding, or much needed conversations where we can build bridges between differences and difference of opinions. This is no time for a casual faith. Así sea. Amen and blessed be.
Thank you for that challenge, Reverend Katie. Each week we split our plate with an organization that shares our values, and this week we're sharing our plate with the Freedom School. For several years, as you may know, All Souls has been a sponsor and a partner for Freedom School. This is a 6-week summer program for children that's been shown by the data to be highly effective at eliminating summer learning loss. So to contribute, you can place a cash or check in the collection basket, or if online, you can go to allsoulsindy.org, our website, and you're going to find a link that says Give to All Souls here. And if you do, please indicate whether your gift is a pledge or whether it's for Split the Plate. Thank you so much for your generosity in supporting the mission of All Souls, and for your continued love for one another and for the world. Morning offering may now be gratefully received.
While the collection plate's going around, I'm gonna share with you guys a bedtime song for me. Actually, it's a Brazilian hymn, but my mom used to sing that for me when I was a kid, before going to bed. Toda natureza me fala do meu Deus. Árvores e flores são todos seus. O céu, o mar, as flores, a noites de luar. Sempre que os contemplo, paro pra pensar. Quem sou eu, ó Pai, pra merecer tamanho amor? Sim, tenho a resposta. Eu nada sou, Senhor, eu nada sou. Mas seu amor me transformou, tornou-me um novo ser. Quero estar contigo e no céu viver. Quero estar contigo e no céu viver. Quero estar contigo e no céu viver. Thank you.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much, Gabe. I'm so with you in my heart, and with all that's happening in the world and in our country right now, this is one of those days when I truly wish I was able to be at the doors as everyone exited the sanctuary. And for the other folks online, I wish I was there in your homes just to shake your hand or give you a hug if that's what you need, and let you know that as long as we lead from love and as long as we are willing to participate in democracy, it might not be easy, but it can be okay. I want to leave you with these adapted words of activist and leader John Lewis. These are reported to be his last words that were released on the day of his funeral. In my life, I've done all I can do to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now is your turn to let freedom ring. So I say to you, go with the wind, my siblings, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.